back with a collection of guns that are kind of the same game of they all look the same, but they're all a little bit different. So what are we looking at today? Some of you can probably tell, mainly by the grips on this guy here. You can't tell by these guys because they're not the right grips, and that's a funky grip. You're looking at a P38 here, wartime production, and then you're looking at two P1s, 1980s production. Ish. I'm going to say ish because I'll explain these guys in a little bit. So what are we looking at here? How do they function, I guess, would be the first part, and then we'll get into the history of it. I'm not going to function this one simply because there's no grips. It's a pain to function these things without a grip. So you got all your markings. I've highlighted them all. You got single action, double action, decock. So, no real reason why you want to dry fire these with the decock. Locks open on the last round. There's a bug in my face. And decocks. And magazine release is a heel release. And there's your magazine. And this is also a wartime production magazine. And I'll explain a little bit the history on these guys, but I'm going to show you the functions on the P1. So here's the P1, post-war production. I'll explain the grips right away because I know a lot of people are going to be staring at those. I'm making my own grips, and I've used these as a copy. And I've cast them in white resin. This one didn't turn out as well. It was my first attempt, and they got a little bit warped because I didn't let them set long enough. They came out kind of toffee-like. All right, so let's get to the function. Single action. Double action. I don't think I've got the decocker working on this just yet. No, not yet. But that's part of working on this. Even though it's not even a front sight. Magazine. I'll use the wartime one. Fits right in. Locks. Drops. Does not decock, like I said. Alright, so functions exactly the same. There are differences, and we're going to go over those. But let's have a look at the P38 first. The P38, this one has an interesting and dark history to it. So the P38s, they were manufactured in two different countries, really. One Germany, one Czechoslovakia. This one is the Spreewerk. It's a Cyq model. You can see Cyq there. Let me get that focus a little bit better for you. So it says Cyq. That's the code for the Spreewerk in Czechoslovakia. There's AC, and that would be Mauser, and BYF, which I've completely blanked on. Walther's. Sorry, yeah. Hang on, let me go over that one more time. AC is Walther's, BYF is Mauser, and CYQ is Spreewerk. Sometimes you'll find on the Spreewerks the bottom part of the Y will be missing, so it looks like CVQ, but it's CYQ. Guarantee you, no difference. You can see the Waffen-Ops. You have the serial number, and then you have a batch. Well, not a batch number, but a letter designation for the manufacturing. Like I said, there it is down there. Got those markings there. On the other side, you have the Waffen-Ops. Waffen-Ops are the inspection marks, which are these guys here. You could probably read them a bit better than I can at this point. And in the middle, you have the acceptance marks by the Wehrmacht, so the army. This could be a little bit different, but usually you're only going to find like the P38s with the Wehrmacht markings on them. The grips are that weird kind of Bakelite. Again, these can vary across P38s. Most of the Spreewerks are going to be this brown. Personally, I like the black, but the brown is classic. I mean, if you want to watch a classic movie with Lugers in them, they say that the Indiana Jones, Indiana Jones Last Crusade is the movie to watch if you like P38s. That's the one where Indiana Jones shoots 3 guys standing in a row. You also have the marking under there as well, the serial number. Point with this guy. So you got the serial number there as well with the letter block. All right, so we'll take a. So the sad part about this pistol here is where it was made. I mean, nothing Nazi is going to have a nice history to it, I can tell you that. But sometimes they can be innocuous in their history. Other times they can be downright evil. And this is downright evil. The Spreewerk factory, established in Czechoslovakia in 1939, I believe, when they invaded, was consisted of prisoners of war, and not prisoner of war as in soldiers, prisoner of war as in civilians. It was really a concentration camp, a work camp. You can see some photos of what the work camp living quarters look like compared to the factory. Needless to say, you don't want to live there. You don't want to work there. This is not a nice job to have. They weren't known as one to do hard labor, work you to death, but they wouldn't hesitate to execute you if you did something they didn't like. For example, when they were manufacturing the Spreewerk's pistols in particular, these guys, they were using the Waffenamps, here the inspection marks, to keep track of the pistols along with the serial numbers. Makes sense. But what was going on is, as in every single factory, you have lunchbox guns. So guns that are assembled and then sent out the door. So what they were doing in the Spreewerk factory is they were doubling up every couple hundred pistols. They were doubling up the serial numbers and then having them inspect it. And then after the inspection, they would pull the gun out, assemble it, and get it out to resistant forces. Well, unfortunately, the Germans caught on to what was going on in their factory, and as a warning, they decided to execute 50 of the workers as just a straight up warning. We don't care if they did it, we don't care if they didn't do it. Anybody in this factory, everybody's going to be held accountable. So they executed 50 of them. That's pretty dark when you're talking about just manufacturing reasons. You're not talking they were assassinating people. They were just sneaking guns out of the factory. So, yeah, a lot of people say, I don't want a gun that was made by slave labor, and I can understand that. I mean, nobody really wants a gun, but at the same time, I don't think these things should be destroyed either. They shouldn't be glorified. They're relics. Relics, just as in the way you would have other relics from prisoner of war camps preserved. Does it mean they should be in the hand of civilians? I don't know. I feel that right civilians, like anything, especially firearms, right civilians can own a piece of horrible history if they're the right person. And like I said, in a sense, they're not going to glorify it. They're not going to hold us up as, what the great leader Hitler did. And I'm not saying Hitler was a great leader. I'm saying that ironically as what not to say. Anyways, so we're going to move on from that. So production of these guys were from 39 to 45. When the factory was taken over, the Obendorf factory in Germany was captured, and the French immediately picked up production of the P38. So the early the late P38s, they were made by the French, and you'll find different markings on them. You won't be able to miss it. I'll give you guys a link if you want to know whether or not you have a French pistol. But basically it has to do with the similar markings you're going to find in the P1s, which is stars and circles and stuff like that for inspection marks. The weight, these guys are quite a bit lighter because they have the aluminum frames. This has a steel frame. Personally, I like heavy guns. They tend to stay. They don't flip as much, so they stay on target for each pull of the trigger. So we'll move on to the P1s because really there's not much difference, and I'll show you the difference between the P38 and the P1, and it comes down to things. Let's start with, well, I don't have the front sight on these guys here. but we'll talk about the sights because those are one of the easier ones to see. There you go. You can see right there. One is black, one has a white mark. Other than that, they're the same. One has, the P38 has more of a U notch to it. The P1 has kind of a square notch to it. There you go. You can see a bit better there. This is going to be the better sight for sure. The front would also have a dot if it had it. This one does not have the dot because it's the P38. It's the wartime one. There's different heights available, so you can fine tune your elevation a bit by changing out your sight. It goes from 0 to 4. They're based on 0.1 millimeter increments, I believe, or is it? Because I don't think it's a full millimeter. That'd be crazy. 4 millimeter would be like up there. So yes, that's one of the details. This difference, and the frame is probably the biggest difference. I'm trying to see if these are the reinforced ones. These are not the reinforced ones. There would be a hex pin going straight through it that you'd be able to see that you can't see on this. So the frames are made of a different material. These are considered the weaker ones, but again, I'm not carrying this around. I'm not doing competition. I'm not shooting 1,000 rounds of ammunition through this thing, so I'm not too concerned about the frame breaking, but you would keep an eye on it. I'll give you a link so you can actually see what a cracked frame looks like and what to watch for on these. I'll take the grips off of this guy here so you can see the spring mechanism is actually the same. Probably using a slightly smaller blade for that. So screw comes out, grip comes off. See the inside of the grip there? And you'll see on the back side the mechanism. All this is identical. So improvements, this one has a stamped trigger. I believe that might be a replacement. It's a little hard to see in this light. Let me change my exposure. There we go. Get a bit brighter. You can see there that's stamped. I believe that should be solid, but I could be wrong there. Anyways, you get them stamped or you can get them solid. You'll see that the springs are the same, the levers are the same, everything's the same when it comes to the function of these, and all these parts will interchange with the P38. Matter of fact, every part will interchange with the P38, with the exception of a few things. A P38 slide will have a square firing pin, and these guys will have a round firing pin. So the firing pins you can't swap from sorry, other way around. The P1 has the round firing pin, that has the square. I got confused what I was pointing at there. So you can't take a round pin and put it in a square hole, right? Kindergarten stuff. We all remember that, hopefully. If not, I'll give you a link to some learning channels. All right, so this one has the trigger that is hollowed out. Now, I'm going to say something about these. You're noticing they kind of look Frankenstein because they completely are Frankenstein. In Canada, our great leader, Trudeau, deemed handguns completely unacceptable to be on the market. So anyways, you can't buy guns anymore. And just before the end of he didn't give us a time it was going to kick in, but I bought these just before the ban kicked in, and it was only the frames because that's all I could afford. The frames are like $30, and I just hodgepodged all the parts from the internet and online and eBay and stuff like that to create these pistols, and they're almost completely finished. I need grips, sight, and this one needs a firing pin. This one has a firing pin, and the ejector. The ejector is the one thing that's been the hardest to find, so I'm probably just going to end up making that out from scratch. It's a simple piece. As long as you harden it right, shouldn't be too hard to do. So moving on, I'm not going to take this one apart because it's the P38 and there's no real reason, but I will show you some difference on these two P38s, and these ones I will take down for you. Ow! That spring pinches. All right. Had some issues with the that spring there engaging properly. All right, so well, that was the pin there. That pin just forces the block up. I'll pull that out. That's the same as the P38. That hasn't changed. The locking mechanism, the locking block here, that hasn't changed. That's exactly the same. The barrels, like I said, will interchange, but I'm going to concentrate on the slide first. Because these are actually quite interesting, these two pistols here. Ow! I've done that before. Oh my god, that hurts. Magazine out. Because look like I'm fumbling because I get pinched my hand. Now I forget everything. Oh no, one of the springs came loose, eh? What the hell is going on? Alright, that's back in. So the lower part of the frame, we'll concentrate on those later. And we'll look at the barrels later too, because the barrels are actually different. On the P1 has gone through a couple evolutions. All right, so unfortunately I can't really show you on this because these are the fat slides. There was a problem with cracking on the slides themselves, going back to the P38s. You can have a look. I'll show you some video, not videos. I'll pop up a photo or two of some of the damage. So you can see this raised ridge. Well, maybe you can't in that angle. You can see there's a raised ridge right there. So you can see there's a step there. This is a sign this is a reinforced slide. These are steel. They never made the slides out of anything but steel. The difference, they went from a 2.5 millimeter width here to a 3.2 millimeter. That's significant. That's a significant amount of materials, but it didn't change the inner dimensions. The inner dimensions being between here and here, that stayed the same. So the outside has just gotten thicker, but internally they stayed the same. I'll show you the markings on this guy here. If I can figure out, it's like working in a mirror. Walther's banner, which is kind of nice. The production date 1082. P1 caliber 9mm, and that's an inspection mark there by the Bundeswehr, and then that would indicate that this has the round firing pin, the reinforced firing pin inside of it as well. You have the fire and safe highlighted, which is nice. This side you have another inspection mark. Moving forward, you got nothing. On top, you've got nothing. So we'll take a look at this guy here. We'll start on the smooth side. Same inspection mark. We'll flip it over. You have virtually identical markings. The round firing pin, the reinforced firing pin, the Walther's banner, 981 on this one. P1 caliber 9mm. We move back, serrations are the same, and even the safe and fire are the same. So no change there. It has the, like I said, the white dot on the sight. No markings on top. Take a look underneath. You can see the firing pin block, which is this guy here. Nice safety feature to have. Other than that, they're virtually identical to the Walther. So let's go on to the barrels. The barrels have their own kind of interesting story. So this would be a slightly earlier barrel than the next one I'm going to show you. Not too much going on here. This is just a solid barrel, very similar to the P38. It is collared. You can see there's a little bit of a difference there. On the inside you can't really see, but again I'll show you on the next one. It's Next one is the newest of the P1 barrels. Locking blocks I'm not going to be too concerned on. Markings on these, you have serial numbers 464. Locking blocks will have sometimes markings on them, sometimes not. Like I said, this is a Frankenstein gun, so you're getting a mismatch of ages. So we'll move on to the more interesting barrel. So you can see this wedge actually has markings on it, P5. Don't know what that means. It also has serial numbers on it, 745. Even though the numbers are close, they're definitely not the same year of production. So the big difference on this, my finger's covering. But look at that. See the difference? So this is a completely sleeved two-part barrel. The original P38s had a one-part barrel. This one, I believe, is still a single-part barrel. I don't think it's sleeved. Usually you can tell on the back. But I believe that's a single-part barrel. So this one's sleeved, so you have a barrel inside of a barrel, essentially. You can see it on the back. Let me adjust exposure on this thing, too. Make it a bit brighter. You know what? Let's get a light. I'm smart. It's a little hard to see. It's very hard to get into frame. Well, you'll see there's a lip here. Ooh, shaky, shaky. There's that lip. So that's a sign that this is a lined two-part barrel. You don't see that lip here. You can see it's just a smooth transition. So that's the difference in the barrels. And let's get on to the frames, because the frames have some interesting differences as well. All right, get rid of that light. Moving on to this frame here. Big, nice, long serial number. Has the inspection marks there. But there's no marks on here. This just looks like a regular P38 takedown lever. This isn't going to change. The hammer, there's no markings on it either. But when we get to the second one, you're going to see some differences. So here's the second one. Well, I guess I'll show you the markings. So markings on this one too. You can see some accepted marks alongside the circles, which would be the inspection marks. Other than that, again, there's not a whole lot on these when it comes to markings. And I keep hitting that camera. I'm sorry, guys. So let's go on to this guy here with the white handle. Serial number. The inspection mark. But if you notice, the takedown lever has a star on it. This would normally indicate a reinforced brain fart. A reinforced... I don't remember now. But anyways, it's a sign that something's been reinforced inside of here. I want to say it's a reinforced firing, the reinforced firing pin of some sort. It's not the frame. So anyways, whenever you see a star, that signs something's being reinforced inside the pistol. Again, I'll look that up, and I'm going to do a little postscript on that. Going back to the hammer, this is different. And this is, I don't know if you call it a big difference, but it's a difference. So you see there's a star there as well. This is a reinforced hammer. You can't see it, but there's much more material deep down inside of here that makes this a bigger, fatter, heavier hammer and more durable. I don't know where the problems came from about the hammer, because I haven't really heard much about that myself. The frames cracking is a much more common thing to happen. You see the X'd out of service mark there. So that's, in a nutshell, in a big nutshell, the differences and similarities between a P38 and a P1. The P1s were manufactured in France for a while, which is kind of interesting because the Germans wanted to use the good old P38s, but because of the war, everyone said, no, guys, you're not using your German guns anymore. We're gonna keep a close tally on those. So Franks decided, well, we can make some money. Let's just pop out some clones of the P38, but we'll update them slightly. So the Bundeswehr, the police, all those guys, they got their they're much loved P38s, but in the P1 style. And if you like P38s, I would say pop culture reference other than Indiana Jones is, of course, Megatron. I mean, how can you not love Megatron? That was a controversial toy when I was a kid, because that was kind of like the, well, if you ever watch 80s cartoons, you know no one ever gets shot. Anyways, that's a whole other can of worms. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Now I gotta put all these back together. I'm not gonna let you watch me struggle and make fun of me any more than I get made fun of by my wife. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, subscribe. I really need every one of you. Think of subscribing as just saying a thank you for your efforts. And if you enjoyed it, please say thanks. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. One little thing that I'm just inserting back here. The ejector difference on the P1 sprung. P38, that just hangs loose, and it's the magazine that pops it up. So I thought you guys find that a little interesting too. That's one big difference.